Thank you for listening to ShulchanAruch.com.
Cutting items on Shabbos such as a tablecloth, a garbage bag, paper towels, a piece of tinfoil, toilet paper, and the like. You have a roll of tablecloth, plastic tablecloths, and it wasn't cut before Shabbos. Can you spread it on your table and then cut it, hands, a scissor, a knife, whatever it is? Is it permitted to be done? You ran out of garbage bags. You have a garbage bag roll. You have to rip it off. They're not detached. May one do so. What about paper towels to rip off a piece? I want to cover my food with a piece of tinfoil. I have a roll. Can I rip off part of a piece from the roll in order to use? So the idea of tearing and cutting an item on Shabbos touches upon various halachic concerns, some biblical. These concerns include the malach of kereya, tearing, the malach of mechatich, cutting, the malach of teichin, the malach of seisa, the malach of erasing letters. But first and foremost, when we are discussing the case scenarios that we brought above, where you are intending to tear something or cut something in order to make a use of it, the main malacha that stands forward to oppose this from being done is the malacha called makeh bepatish, or as its offshoot name is known as tikkun kli. The Torah prohibits, it's a biblical prohibition for one to prepare an item for use on Shabbos. In the Mishkan, this malacha was known as makeh bepatish. That's the av malacha, in which they would use a hammer to finish the smoothing of the vessels. And the tolda, the offshoot of this malacha, is as the Alter Rebbe writes in the Shulchan Aruch in chapter 302, halacha 5, that anything that one does to fix a vessel, this fixing is biblically forbidden, and one is liable for a sin offering for doing so. So now that we know it's forbidden to fix things on Shabbos, we have to now define what does that mean. What's the definition of fixing? Is simply cutting something for a use considered fixing that would be biblically forbidden? So in various areas of Shulchan Aruch we find a direct reference to the above case of cutting things for making a use. And there it states as follows. If you cut an item for the sake of making a use with the item that you cut, then if you use a scissor or a knife, a vessel, you transgress a biblical prohibition of tikkun kli. If you use your hands to cut it, you transgress a rabbinical prohibition. But either way, the cutting is forbidden. So is recorded in the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber 340, halacha 13, and the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch in many areas, 340:17, 308:54, 82, 314:12, 5082, and other sources. That the mere idea of cutting something off or plucking something off is forbidden on Shabbos if you plan on making a use for it. If you don't plan on making a use with it, then although it won't carry an issur of tikkun kli because you didn't fix anything, you're not doing anything with it, but it could fall under the other prohibitions that we mentioned of kereya, mechatich, teichin, seisa, erasing letters, which we are not going to go into now, as it's not relevant to the cases at hand that we're discussing, which are in any event forbidden due to the issur of tikkun kli. So based on this information, it's clear in the cases that we mentioned, which we will now particularize, that it's forbidden to cut or tear the item on Shabbos. And so is written in the Malaktim of today that these things are forbidden to be done. This includes a tablecloth roll. It's forbidden for one to cut a tablecloth roll to cover one's table on Shabbos, whether with a knife or with his hands, and you must prepare it before Shabbos. A roll of garbage bags is forbidden to be cut. On Shabbos, you have to prepare the garbage bags before Shabbos. A good idea, buy garbage bags that are detached, not a roll. Plastic sandwich bags. If you have a plastic sandwich bag in which the upper bag is connected to the lower bag and has to be plucked off, forbidden to do on Shabbos, due to tikkun kli. Tinfoil is forbidden to be cut on Shabbos from the roll, whether with your hands or with a knife, due to tikkun kli. A paper towel may not be ripped off from the roll on Shabbos. Toilet paper may not be ripped off from the roll on Shabbos. Tissues that are attached one to the other may not be detached from each other on Shabbos for the sake of making a use of it. And in all these cases, the prohibition applies, as we keep mentioning, whether you use your hands or you use a knife or a scissor. The only difference would be whether it's biblical or rabbinical. Biblical with a knife, rabbinical with your hands. It also makes no difference if you cut by the serrated lines or outside the serrated lines. A great misconception. If I don't cut by the serrated lines, by the dotted area of cutting, then I'm okay. Not true. It makes no difference if you follow what the company told you. You do it your own. The point is you're doing an act to fix it for a use. Cutting by the serrated lines makes it not more lenient and not more stringent. It's also not an issur mechatich if you cut by the serrated lines, as you're not specifically having in mind to be a specific measurement. It's just easier for you. So whether you cut by the serrated lines or cut elsewhere, it's the same issur of tikkun kli. It also makes no difference if you cut a large amount. Some people think if you cut more than necessary, it's okay. That's also incorrect. By shortening the item, why did you shorten it? For a purpose. Why didn't you just leave it the way it was? Why did you shorten it? In order to prepare it. So even though you went ahead and cut it differently than usual, you left more space, this doesn't help in avoiding the Isser of Tikkun Kli. Based on all the above, not only can you not cut the above items on Shabbos, but they actually have a question of muktzah. Certainly they would be under the category of Kli Shemalachta L'Isser, which cannot be moved to save from damage, but only to use it for a permitted purpose or to free its space. And furthermore, if these items are completely unusable due to the fact that you can't cut them, then they would enter into the higher status of muktzah machmas chesron kis, or muktzah machmas gufay, as rules the Alter Rebbe regarding paper that doesn't have a use on Shabbos, and it would be completely muktzah to move on Shabbos unless you do it with a shuni with an irregularity, as is always allowed by muktzah. Regarding if you may ask a Gentile, a guy, your maid, to cut these things on Shabbos for you. So in general, the halach is forbidden to ask a guy to do malach for you on Shabbos, even before Shabbos, and this is no different. However, in the case of great need or for the sake of a mitzvah, just like we're always lenient by shvus to ask a guy to do a rabbinical command, so too, in the case of great need for the sake of a mitzvah, you may ask a Gentile to cut the items with their hands, which would thus make it two rabbinical prohibitions, which is permitted for the sake of great need or a mitzvah. The above is a mitzvah to publicize, as many people stumble on the above subject of cutting these things on Shabbos, thinking that there is no issue involved.